Hey, Cam Dunlap here, founder and CEO of the Real Estate Wealth Network with a video blog post. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about the big increase in the number of houses for sale and the fact that that spells opportunity for real estate investors like you and me. We're going to take a look at U.S. cities with a significant increase in housing inventory year over year. We'll talk about why it's happening and what it means to us as real estate investors. So before we dig into the numbers, though, let's take a look at how this increase is measured. We are going to look at the number of active listings in the local MLS. Now, every area has its own MLS. There's, something on the order of 3,000 plus counties in the United States. Many of those counties have their own unique MLS systems. Suffice to say, there are many of them across the U.S. And one of my favorite statistics to follow is the number of active listings locally, because what that tells us is it's one measure of the state of the market. So as the number of active listings is rising, what we know is the market is cooling off and there are more sellers than buyers. If the number of active listings is falling, well, the opposite is true. And we've seen for the last couple of years since COVID, an incredibly strong sellers market. And we are now seeing evidence of that swinging in the other direction because of the number of active listings in the local MLS. We'll also look at the average days on market or what the Fred data system calls the market hotness. So the average days on market would be another great metric to follow. And as the number of days on market rises, what that means is houses are sitting on the market longer, which means sellers aren't seeing the kind of activity that they once were. And the opposite is true if the number of days on market is falling. We've seen very, very short DOM numbers over the last couple of years, 3 years probably, and those are starting to grow in length. And I'll show you that here. Now, you might ask, well, what about off-market properties, Cam? You talk an awful lot about off-market properties. And by that, I mean properties that are not on the MLS and therefore have very little competition and represent a significant opportunity for us. Well, what I will tell you is that there is a direct correlation between on and off market. So the more on-market properties there are for sale, the more off-market properties there will be as well. So even though we're going to be looking at on-market statistics, you can safely presume that the number of off-market properties is also rising in these cities and many, many others across the country. So there'll be proportionally more of them too. Now, you may have seen me talk about this, where in any given market, houses fall into basically three categories, and we could argue there's more, but for the purpose of this conversation, I think we could narrow it down to three. They're either in the MLS, they're for sale by owner, or they're off market, meaning they're owned by a seller who's feeling trapped, needs to sell the property, doesn't know how, may need tons of repairs. They don't have the money to do those. And so they're in a state of paralysis and they're just feeling stuck. Very, very common. And that's, we see that in every market across the country. And so clearly the greatest inventory, the greatest number of houses for sale at any given time are in the MLS. That is certainly where the greatest inventory is going to be. But with that, guess what else? That's where there's the greatest competition, right? They say, fish where the fish are, or go for the low-hanging fruit. And those are great sayings, but as a contrarian, I think exactly the opposite. In fact, given that information, I'm going to suggest that the greatest opportunity is on the right side of the scale, And that's simply because there's much, much less competition. All right, so let's dig in. Now, I've chosen 10 cities. They're large cities, and I've put them in order in the number of active listings, the greatest number being first, and then we're going to work our way through 10 different cities, and we'll talk about each of them. So the first one is Ogden, Utah. Ogden, Utah. Well, the active listings is up 492% year over year. This is from January of 2022 to January of 2023. Now, it's later than that now, but that's the most complete stats that I was able to obtain. So in January of 2022, there were 276 active listings. Today, 1,358. So that's an increase of 492%, almost 5x as many houses for sale today versus, or in January versus last year. The number of days on market has effectively doubled from 38, an average of 38 days on market, to 78 days on market. Okay, so that's interesting, but why? Why is that the case? Well, the migration that was in response to COVID has literally dried up. Now, when COVID hit and they unceremoniously locked us in our houses, there was a huge migration of folks that left the very densely populated urban areas and either bought a second home or left altogether and bought a new primary residence in more suburban and rural areas. And Ogden was a big recipient of that. Well, that has dried up. And then, of course, the other market force that's in play, that is in play in every market across the U.S., is that interest rates are also way, way up. And so that makes it harder and less attractive for buyers. Number 2 on the list is Huntsville, Alabama. Huntsville, Alabama, not all that far from where my daughter went to college at Auburn. Yeah, War Eagle. That's right. You heard me, War Eagle. Huntsville, Alabama, active listings up 419% year over year. In January of 2022, 364 properties for sale. This past January, 1,527 properties for sale. A huge increase. Days on market, more than double, from 32 days to 69 days. Why? Well, slowed growth in the tech sector there and in the NASA facility. So Huntsville has really become a bit of a tech hub in the central southern part of the country. And there was an enormous amount of hiring going on, and that has slowed way down. And then, of course, interest rates are way up. Number 3 is Nashville, Tennessee. Still a very, very popular place for people who are fleeing, high taxes and politics they don't particularly care for. However, their active listings in Nashville up 404%. So things slowing down there too, quite a bit. January 2022, 1,608 properties for sale. Today, 6,489 properties for sale. That is a 4x increase. The number of days on market also a little more than double, from 26 to 54 days. Why? Well, again, migration due to COVID has slowed way down, and Nashville will always be a tax haven state. And so much of that has stopped, and interest rates are way up. Speaking of tax haven states, next is Austin, Texas. Active listings up 360% year over year. In January of 2022, 1,762 properties. January 2023, 6,350 properties. Days on market, not quite double, from 47 to 80 days on market. Why? Again, the migration due to COVID and tax haven state has stopped or certainly slowed down significantly, and interest rates are way up. Number 5 on the list, Raleigh, North Carolina. Active listings up 355% year over year. January of 2022, 914. January of 2023, 3,243 houses for sale. Average DOM more than double from 37 to 78 days. Why? Well, in Raleigh, there was a huge new construction boom. And so now many of those properties are sitting empty or are incomplete and have no buyers for them, in large part because interest rates are way up. Next on the list, Sarasota, Florida. Active listings up 334% from 694 in January of 2022 to 2,320 in January of 2023. DOM remaining about flat. Now, it's interesting, Florida remains and will always be one of the most popular tax haven states. I think Texas and Florida really kind of carry the flag as most popular tax haven states, where you see people fleeing from places like New York and California for all sorts of reasons, not the least of which is in both those states, Florida and Texas, there is no state income tax. So why the slowdown in the market? Although DOM is still strong, many more properties for sale. Again, migration due to COVID and the tax haven state have slowed or stopped. And of course, interest rates way up. So, that is a common theme for many of these cities, certainly. Next is Fayetteville, Arkansas. Active listings up 310% year over year. January 2022, 544. January 2023, 1,691. Days on market up from 62 to 79. And why? Well, interest rates way up. And then, again, very little COVID migration or influence. And Fayetteville is a really interesting town. It's real pretty. There's a lot of hills there. And it was a place where a lot of people were going just to flee the densely populated areas, that migration. Phoenix, Arizona, active listings up 290% from 4,689 in January 2022 to 13,618 in January of 2023. Days on market, not quite double, from 38 to 75 days. Why? Well, interest rates are way up and buyers really not buying, and prices are definitely headed down in Phoenix, Arizona. In fact, Phoenix is one of the biggest boom and bust markets in the United States. And so, when you think about that, the markets that go up the most tend to fall the most. Markets like Southern California, Bay Area of California, all sorts of coastal markets that are highly, highly cyclical, where prices go up a ton and then come back down a ton. They tend to sort of ride on the tip of the spear, if you will, or the javelin, right? So when you throw that thing, it heads up, and whatever's at the tip of the spear is certainly the highest. And then as soon as it turns down, whatever's at the tip of the spear, the tip of the spear is certainly the lowest. So it's feeling that. Again, Phoenix being one of the biggest boom and bust markets in the United States. Number 9 is Seattle, Washington. Active listings up 275% from 1,020 in January 2022 to 3,710 in January 2023. Days on market just over double, 14 to 29 days. Again, interest rates way up, and an extraordinary lack of affordability. The median price for a single-family residential house in the Seattle, Washington area is $724,975. That is close to twice the median price nationally. So a very, very expensive place to live. We're seeing a lack of affordability, frankly, everywhere. And then, of course, interest rates going up with the Fed raising rates makes what was once unaffordable or very expensive even less affordable, because now your payment is that much higher due to the higher interest rate. Last on the list is Colorado Springs, Colorado. Active listings up 263% year over year. January 2022, there were 610. This past January, 1,609. days on market more than double from 30 to 69 days. Why? Again, the migration in response to COVID has dried up, and Colorado Springs saw a lot of that migration. As you might imagine, being in the mountains, a very suburban, if not rural area, and interest rates way up. All right. So what are some of the commonalities that we're seeing here? What are some of the things that these markets have in common? Well, many are in tax haven states, and there is a giant migration that continues, but was really heightened by COVID. So folks that lived in densely populated areas like New York City, for example, they said, all right, we're out of here. Enough of this already. It's so expensive here. It's insane. And by the way, in New York City, there's even a third tax, right? So you have federal, state in New York is ridiculous. And then in New York City, you have a city tax that puts you at well over 50% of your top line income. So it was an easy decision for people to make if they said, all right, we're out of here, COVID, density, not doing this, we're gone. Let's go somewhere warm and sunny where there's no state or city income tax and drop our tax bill from 55% to 37.5%, which is that's like getting a huge pay raise, assuming you keep the same job or your business and you continue to earn the same amount of money. Some other commonalities we saw in some of these cities that we looked at saw among the biggest increase in demand and the biggest increase in prices. These are cyclical markets for sure. And what I mean by that, of course, is the markets where prices go up and come down. And then there are other areas that are, very linear, where they barely move at all, right? They might go up 2-3% a year, every year, no matter what. There are fewer and fewer of those linear markets today than there were just, 5 or 10 years ago. More and more of the U.S. markets are becoming cyclical. But so that is something that certainly these 10 cities have in common. Demand is down sharply. Interest rates are up sharply. So those commonalities exist between the 10 cities that I looked at. We could have looked at many, many more and seen very similar numbers, no doubt. So what are some interesting takeaways for you to think about? Well, these examples are large, cyclical, and competitive markets. So what that means is, they're markets that I personally, and if you follow what I'm sharing with my audience and our community on a regular basis, these are markets you're probably not investing in either. I'm in much more rural areas, more center of the country, more linear markets where there's less competition, both domestic and international competition, less of the seesawing, pricing. And so these are markets that I'm generally not doing or haven't done business in. Like I said, I'm going to be in much smaller, more, or I should say less competitive markets. All real estate is truly local. So, when you talk about the real estate market, if you're speaking in terms of the entire country, it almost doesn't make sense because, like I said, there's over 3,000 counties in the United States, and there are many, many, many markets. And so what's going on in real estate is always very local. What's going on in Austin, Texas may be very, very different than what's going on in Corpus Christi or else, other parts of Texas is my point. All real estate is local. And I'm sure we'd agree that the Fed is doing a brilliant job of destroying demand through their rate increases. It is having a profound impact on real estate in many, many ways, and in particular, affordability. When the interest rates go up, people's mortgage payments go up, whether they're originating a new mortgage or they have an existing mortgage that is an adjustable rate. Rates are up. Prices remain relatively steady, except in the hyper-cyclical market. So you're not seeing prices in a lot of the linear markets falling, yet we are starting to see that in the hyper cyclical markets. Sellers are really only beginning now to capitulate. And what I mean by that is they're only now beginning to face the music and realize that if they want their house sold, they're going to have to either take a lower offer or drop their price, one or the other. That capitulation is starting to happen. There's lots of evidence, and much of it I'm sharing with you here. Existing low-rate mortgages are a big incentive for folks to stay put. Look, if you bought a house in, 2020 or 2019 before COVID, and you got one of those amazing 2.5, 2 3/4 point 30-year fixed rate loans, and for you might say, gee, I'd really like to move. I'd like to have a bigger house or a smaller house or whatever your reason that's compelling you. One of the things that's going to have you say, no, I'm going to stay put, is if you had to give up that 2.5 or 2 3/4% fixed rate mortgage and then go buy a house at 6.5 or even 6 3/4. What a huge difference in your payments. So those low fixed rate mortgages that are out there are a strong incentive for people to stay put. The COVID migration is over. Let's face it, it is over. In fact, I was reading an interesting article the other day in the Wall Street Journal about people who are, they moved out of the densely populated areas into a suburban or rural area. And now they're saying, oh my gosh, my employer is insisting I come back to the office. I need to go back or find another job. That is a dilemma. And there's an awful lot of people that are facing that. So we may see a little bit of a reverse migration take place as a result. I missed one. There we go. And what this means is there are more investment opportunities every day for you and me. We're starting to see the moons align as real estate investors. There are more and more motivated sellers every day. The foreclosure rate is up dramatically, and that is in large part a result of lenders finally catching up with borrowers who have been in houses and not making payments for a long time. The moratoriums stretched that out, and now they have this huge backlog, and they're starting to work their way through that. The courts are clogged with them, and the wheels of justice turn slowly, but we are starting to see an uptick, a significant uptick in the number of foreclosures. I've always said that you should live where you want to live and invest where the numbers make sense. And that's why I'm a big believer in virtual or remote investing, because you could live in a market that's not really great for investing and do your investing business in another state or another county or another town or multiple areas, which is the case for many of my clients and myself. So always remember that to live where you want to live and invest where the numbers make sense. Dig deeper with the Motivated Seller Data Feed. We have a tool that you may or may not be aware of called the Motivated Seller Data Feed, and it is updated constantly with information about property owners that have challenges that are potentially motivating them to sell. And there are more than 20 different motivations within that tool. Any one or a combination of as many of them as you want, you can filter on and really customize that tool to be your own. It is by far and away the most accurate, the most useful, and the most user-friendly tool of its kind in the marketplace. It's called the Motivated Seller Data Feed. It's something that I use on a daily basis. I'll invite you to join me on one of our virtual live trainings. You can check out when the next one is, get registered, and get it in your calendar. You can do that at timewithcam.com. And you can see everything that we have to offer, including our no-fee transactional funding, same day, next day, no-fee transactional funding. You can check out everything we have to offer, including our no-fee transactional funding, at rewn.com. That is, of course, an acronym for Real Estate Wealth Network, rewn.com. And by the way, I'll end this quick blog post by sharing our funding numbers as of today. Total amount funded and we started funding deals for our clients in 2009. The first deal we did was for a lady in Ohio. Since then, we have funded $84,419,729 in same-day, next-day transactional funding for our clients, and we charge no fees for that funding. And I know that might strike you as too good to be true. I assure you it is not. We do it every day. In fact, I literally just a few minutes ago did a funding call with our client Terrence, who we just funded a deal for in Louisiana, and he made 10 grand on the deal. Accumulated student profits since 2009, $13,920,089. We're very excited because we know we're going to cross that $14 million mark soon. And by the way, I'll add that we know exactly what our clients make when we fund their deals because we've got the closing statements to back it up and prove it. We have closing statements for every one of those transactions. And so we can easily calculate what our clients are making. And that's just on the deals that we know about, the ones that we've funded. There are many, many, many other deals our clients are doing on a daily basis that we're not aware of because they don't need or they don't use our funding for those particular deals. And that's fine. But for sure, $13,920,000 in profits that our clients have made that we can document. And the average profit that our client makes per deal, and this is over the last 12 months, is $17,617. That's the average profit that our clients make wholesaling a house utilizing our same day, next day, no fee transactional funding. So that's what I've got for you today. Thanks for watching this short video. Check us out at rewn.com, and I'll talk to you soon. Cam Dunlap here from the Real Estate Wealth Network. Happy investing, and I'll see you soon. Until then, bye for now.